Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to The Street Live. I'm Jeff Marks, standing on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange with Jim Cramer. Jim, very strong day in the markets yesterday. We did see a lower open, but we are trying to push a little bit higher here. What do you think is coming on?
Nike that's keeping the Dow down. I am becoming, maybe it's just because I'm influenced by Dr. Gottlieb's unbelievable book, but I am becoming far more bullish about the COVID situation in our country. Whether it be, and I was thinking about, do we look at Macy's because we're having that cross-border again, whether it be the boosters that the president probably ordered CDC, where you can go to Walgreens today and get a booster. I am thinking that people are getting more and more confident. The breakthrough cases I know, and I know so many of them, it's a cold or it's a fever, but they're back to work in 5 days. The NFL, I think this is the most positive story. 70,000 people in a game, all over the country, and no COVID outbreaks. College, no COVID outbreaks. Yes, COVID outbreaks among children, 1 million, because of no vaccine. Maybe give them vaccine and be good. But I think that I've been waiting for the football outbreaks. We didn't get it. And this means to me, you know what? You can assemble. You can assemble, and that's a very big deal.
Is that, does that mean maybe it's time to make a move back into the airlines, travel and leisure? I know you had Airbnb on the other night, cruise lines.
Terrific. We have Wynn. Now, Wynn finally, I thought Maddox handled himself very well last night. There was a note from Deutsche Bank saying you should buy Delta in the fourth quarter. I know that there is, the cruise ships all got some push. I feel American Express is good, but we have MasterCard. So I think I would reiterate that I think MasterCard is a great way to play it.
Yeah, we'll talk more about Wynn on the Action Alerts Plus video right after this. But didn't he say last night something about how when the travel restrictions eased with the UK and Europe, they saw a huge amount of bookings coming from that region?
Hundreds of people want to go to Vegas. Now think about this. In 4 days, it was just kind of done, basically very quietly. 4 days, they basically all fill up with Brits. I mean, I think that the value of Vegas as a destination is very big. But I also think we have to think, look, I know Macy's is not what people want as a retailer. I know that Nike is going to bring a lot of retailers down. There's people who think they don't have the goods. But American Eagle is a great way, and we know that Matt Boss was talking very positively about it. I want to own a little more retail. I think that more commerce means more retail. More retail means buy AEO.
All right, Jim, I do want to turn our attention back to cryptocurrency. So
really?
China, so only because of what the China news.
No, because I've been so negative and people hate me. And it's so funny because I'm so not talking my book. I own a lot of Ethereum.
Yeah. Well, you did say the other day that if you are a crypto investor, maybe it's time to take profits because some type of China crackdown was looming, and they did say overnight that all cryptocurrency-related activities are illegal, specifically highlighting Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Tether, which I know you're very focused on.
And by the way, if you look at my Twitter feed right now, I'm starting to get better in the mentions columns because they're getting rid of a lot of sodomy. Endless Jon Stewart clips today. Well, it's always good to get a refresher of what happened 15 years ago. But what I think is really important is that people are missing, the crypto bulls are missing the point. The Chinese government, when they cracked down on Ant, they wanted the data. They want to know who has how much money. And they want that money, I believe, ultimately confiscated. A lot of people have been hiding their money in Bitcoin. They're now saying basically you're going to be re-educated if you put your money in Bitcoin. It is not because they're against the currency. Pseudo-currency, whatever. It's because they want total control over you and don't want your money hidden. And why the Bitcoin fanatics don't understand that is because they genuinely believe that the Chinese Communist government is not a tyrannical government. It's not a fascist government. But when you look at what they did with Ant, the crypto is harder for them to find if you're hiding money, so they're outlawing it. Plain and simple. Not bullish.
All right, Jim, I want to turn from crypto to the debt ceiling. October 1st, big date coming up. Republicans and Democrats still can't seem to agree on the debt ceiling and spending and infrastructure. For that matter, what's your focus here?
David Kostin's done the best work on that, saying, look, it's a speed bump, basically. Don't take any action on it. It has always confused me when the speaker says don't worry about it, and people are still worried about it. The speaker's very, very powerful. And I think she will get something done.
All right, let's talk earning next. You did mention Nike earlier, so let's start with that. Down pretty big today. The quarter looked fine, however, supply chain issues were what they're calling is the sole reason why they lowered their forecast. And I know you're focused on some sluggish sales growth out of China.
I just think that supply chain can't explain plus 1%. That's just a dramatic deceleration. So then immediately people say, well, what does it mean for Apple? These are two different animals. I think that just like we had to worry about expensive cosmetics, I think that the Chinese are seemingly always trying to find a way to show how much money they have. I felt this is something I learned when I was at the Milan Fashion Week when I said, why are the Asians so bullish on these? Well, they said, well, look, they love beautiful clothes, love expensive clothes. Who doesn't, right? But they love expensive shoes. Now, I think there's absolutely nothing. I'm going to make this clear. It's universal. It's not. I mean, people love the expensive shoes. I love the Nikes, but the government doesn't seem to want any outward show of wealth. And $200 shoes means outward show of wealth. I question whether people should be buying Capri here, because that it appeals to Asians. And I know there'll be people out there who say, "Oh my God, Cramer, he's like attacking Asians." I mean, please don't understand that. I think that the Chinese government is attacking Asians, and I don't like it. And I think that the idea, I'm betting that they don't like the Chinese government is saying, even though that Nike has to deal with the Ministry of Sports, that the Chinese people, I think that if you were there, remember they're on camera everywhere. I think there's probably some Chinese people who are afraid of wearing very expensive sneakers right now.
Well, let's take a step back for a minute. Yesterday on our Action Alerts Plus call, we broke down the revenue exposure to China for every single name in the portfolio. So is the lesson with Nike here potentially with that sluggish sales and a little bit uncertainty about the future? Maybe it's time to reevaluate how much of our companies do have that revenue exposure, or
I
too early?
And that was an excellent conference call. We took action in Estee Lauder. It was painful because I think Estee Lauder is so great. I think we have to look at each tub on its own basin. I don't want to draw any conclusions. I see the Nike number, and I saw the Estee Lauder number. The Estee Lauder number was great, but remember, I know we bought Win, and then the future was bad. Win's made me gun shy about Nike, plain and simple. We talked about how, on the call, we we kept Win in part because like a thermo, because thermo went up, and we didn't want to just bolt on Win. But I'm also mindful that the part of Win that is really hurt in Macau is those rich junkets. And anything that shows outward wealth, like I would not want to own Richemont's, LVMH, which is an unbelievable company. I mean, fabulous company. But right now, there is a crackdown on the show of wealth.
So case-by-case situation.
Case by case. But it does remind me that Stalin in the 50s had a crackdown on the show of wealth. And it was devastating. And so I just unfortunately believe that Xi is much more of the Stalin variety than he is of the Deng Xiaoping variety, and that's very important.
All right, let's take another stock, which I think you would put in this thermo camp as a stock that is just such a multi-year winner, and that's Costco. Better than expected earnings last night. Stock's higher today. Typically, Costco sells off on the quarter because everyone knows the number because they do report monthly sales. What are you looking at in Costco?
Insights. One was the number of members, quite shocking how much. Second store in China next year. So now you're starting to think, you know what? They figured out the China model. If they figure out the China model, they can put up, this chain doesn't have a lot of stores. They put up 50 Costcos. The Chinese love the Costco. Then another thing that I really liked was that they talked about how, look, we're still going for top line. The analysts all wanted to go for margin. Like Salesforce, they went for margin. And what they do when they're going for top line, what they're really basically saying is, listen, we're going to get a lot more members. And if you get a lot more members to open 20 stores net, then next year's number is going to be great. So I think it's all about a player next year. Rich Glancy runs an amazing conference call. He puts on a clinic every time. Nike used to put on a clinic, but not last night. He put on a clinic about how business really should work, which is that, guys, what you really want to do is you want to pay your people really well. You want to make everyone feel like a team. You want to get customers in on inexpensive stuff. You want them to go around and buy a lot of other stuff and become members, and it's a virtuous circle. So many people claim flywheel, and it's usually a joke. It is a flywheel.
Yeah, and to your point about how the Chinese consumer does love Costco, I remember when they first opened that warehouse, there was a viral video out there. I think they had to shut it down because they were just having too many people.
Rich didn't like that.
And this was pre-COVID.
Oh, I know. Rich didn't like that at all. He's very angry. Very angry because that meant that they didn't know their people and they didn't know their customers. And then they figured it out. And I think Rich maybe goes to the one when they opened in China, the second one. And I think people have to understand that the logistics of keeping a Costco stocked intraday are very, very difficult. I urge people to listen because at one point, and I know he's just kind of playing around, but I think I might mention it for my my no huddle tonight, is he just gives you the litany of all the things that are going on right now. And then basically it's a good time to be a retailer because they are a company like no other company. They are a company that says, all right, we have all these negatives. Let's turn them into positives. And most people just say, listen, we missed because we had negatives. Now, I wanted to ask you, by the way, in terms of what Carol Tomei talked yesterday on CNBC, I thought that she was basically saying the same thing, which is that the other people are taking negatives and making negatives. I thought that she was saying that they're not going to have that margin problem. And if that's the case, stock's too cheap. I don't know.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I thought what she explained as some of the issues that FedEx is experiencing were already in her guidance as well. I think that if they were, FedEx had it was a $450 million headwind related to labor costs and the shortages. I feel like she would have been a little bit more vocal. She is very transparent, and I think she would have flagged an issue if there would have been one. And I think she said her times are actually better than a year ago. I want to check back on that, but I thought that's what I took away from that interview.
It's really important to understand that some businesses are about margin expansion, sales force. And some businesses are about, I don't care if margin contracts if we have a lot of volume, and that's Costco. And you have to know which one is which. FedEx had a lot of volume, but tremendous margin contraction, which was a nightmare. And what you really want is you want a lot of volume, and you can handle slight margin contraction, but you can't handle a lot of margin contraction.
All right, Jim. Lastly, let's turn to semis. Yesterday, you were pretty vocal about the semiconductor shortage, especially after the White House did have a meeting. You're calling this the semi shortage. It's an issue of national security.
Did say that. Secretary Raimondo, I think, is doing a great job, but remember, right now the $52 billion is locked into the regular bill, and it's got to come out with it to be defense. But once again, I think, look, I am very proud of our military. My father served proudly. But someone from the military has to speak up and say, look, we're very worried about the possibility that we'll lose Taiwan semi. Because, again, last night the Chinese flew over Taiwan airspace. This is not a friendly situation. And if they take control of Taiwan like they took control of Hong Kong, then our military's in big trouble. And I think our military's really got to start talking about this stuff.
Yeah, this will be, it's still an issue that we're still tracking for months now. Definitely is it's going to linger into 2022 as well. So big story there. All right, that's a show for today, everyone. Have a great weekend.